OHS. So the Underground Railroad is an amazing part of Canada's history, and we just want to celebrate and commemorate it today. This is something that most of us probably would have learned throughout elementary school.
Isn't it amazing the resilience and strength of Black people for having to brave through this experience? And even now, today, when they're struggling, and back then as well, we need to empower and recognize what happened then as well.
So here's a video speaking more about the Underground Railroad in depth. Enjoy.
Hi, my name is Maritza. I am a beauty and lifestyle blogger on Instagram, as well as a law student and aspiring lawyer. My journey online with blogging started with hair care when I started my natural hair journey, and initially I just wanted to share different tips for women of color and Black women since we didn't always have representation and we didn't always have those tips and those resources to take care of our hair. And this is how it started, and through that I developed a passion for hair, a passion for beauty, but I also wanted to be that representation. I wanted to create a community and be a part of a community with Black women and women of color online. As for my passion for the law and the academic side, I am really lucky in that it permits me to put into action concretely my activism. I'm an intersectional feminist. I have a very big passion for social justice. And through my academic career and through my professional career, it permits me to put that into action. So those are kind of my two passions that I developed throughout the years. I have had a very unique experience of Blackness and circulating through spaces throughout my life. So because, of course, of my racial ethnicity and where I was born. So I was born in Haiti, and I grew up there until I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I moved to Canada. I am also of a mixed heritage, so I am mostly of Black and Arab heritage. So I have had a very, let's say, privileged experience of Blackness. So I wouldn't say that I experienced overt discrimination of racism throughout my life, so I'm very lucky to say that, but I'm still very aware of the privilege that I have to have been able to navigate through life this way. However, the times that I had experienced discrimination or racism throughout my life, I think it's sort of just opened my eyes to the amount of work that still needs to be done of the systemic racism that is present. And although it hasn't been really pleasant experiences, I think it only motivated me even more and kind of fueled my ambition to find different ways to change that situation, to fuel my activism and find different ways to change that, or at least to make my mark to change the situation, whether it be through volunteering, or whether it be through my work online, or whether it be through my profession. When we think of Black history, we tend to think of the United States, the Civil Rights Movement, the movement of enslaved Blacks to South America, the Caribbean, the United States. But rarely do we think of Canada, specifically Canada's role as a safe haven and an ideal place for fugitive slaves to escape slavery and slave ownership. Well, that was the case specifically for the city of Oakville. So Oakville was actually considered a safe haven and a place where a Black community, a Black Canadian community settled and developed throughout the years. I found out about the city of Oakville and its importance as a safe haven towards the end of high school when I read the book Any Known Blood by Lawrence Hill, a biracial Canadian author, and he also wrote the book of Negroes. And his father is also a very prominent figure in the Black community in Canada, specifically in the city of Oakville. And Oakville had a very important role as a safe haven through the Underground Railroad, so it was one of the places that a lot of fugitive slaves chose to settle in order to escape. So the Underground Railroad were a series of networks and safe havens that were created by slave abolitionists and that were utilized by fugitive slaves in order to escape slave ownership, or specifically states in which slave ownership remained, specifically southern states. And they used those networks and those routes in order to get to the north. So the Underground Railroad technically started in the 1780s. However, it reached its peak in the 1850s when the United States passed the Fugitive Slaves Act. This act permitted slave catchers to follow fugitive slaves all the way to the north, although they would try to escape. So operators of the Underground Railway created a series of codes and a series of routes, and they would help fugitive slaves get from safe space to another without being discovered. Now they use a series of codes in order to maintain the secrecy of the networks as well as the locations themselves. Now there was a peak in fugitive slaves in Canada, as slaves at that time knew that they would be safe from capture once they would get on Canadian soil. So although Oakville was not technically a station or a safe haven established in the network itself, a lot of fugitive slaves found their way to Oakville due to its proximity to Toronto and other safe spaces. They were helped by many men in the community, such as Captain Robert Wilson, who stowed slaves in their grain hold, leaving from ports in Rochester in the United States all the way to Canada. And this is where a lot of Black men and women from the United States established a community permanently in Oakville. So for example, John Cosley was the publisher and the editor of the newspaper The Bee, and the African Methodist Church was created by William Butler. So two prominent figures in Oakville who created and established a community and different organizations for the Canadian Black community in Oakville.